Game tomorrow night at Papa John's Cardinal Stadium. We have a couple of other fellows from the radio stations and TV stations who are supposed to be here, but the most trustworthy man in town, a guy that every time I ask him to do something, he not only says yes, but he shows up on time, and he does it, my friend Tony Vanetti from the Afternoon Underdog.
I love you, Billy. That's why I always show up. Anytime, Billy, I'm coming. Plus, he said a free burger, and I said, fantastic. By the way, I had the patty melt. Who else had the patty melt? Anybody? Yeah. All right. I knew you had good taste over there. Just got an update. The freshman game is not going in the Saint X way. It is 21-0 with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. Rumors have it that this freshman team for Trinity is better than the Hatcher class that just left with James Quick and the rest of them. So you never know.
This comes from a Trinity man now. We must.
You never know. But again, score doesn't lie, Billy. It's 21-0.
All right. A bit of news today. I don't know if you all have seen your Voice Tribune yet today, but they announced Earl Cox is retiring. Earl and I were colleagues for many years at the Courier and Times. We left at about the same time, and Earl hooked on right away with the Voice Tribune. And hard as it is to believe, has been writing for them for over 25 years.
Did he work for you?
I worked for him for a number of years, and then at the end, he kind of worked for me.
Yeah, that's
but we got along. We were just colleagues. But you know what that means, of course, is that now I am the official dean of the local sports media.
So I just mean you're old, dude. That's what that is.
I want you to be in charge of getting me a hat that says the dean on it.
All right, I'm working on it.
I want oak leaf clusters on the bill, the whole deal.
Did he send you an email and go, sorry, dude, you're it?
But Earl certainly want to remember him and thank him for all of his contributions to sports and journalism for a long, long period of time, and he will be missed. Now, Tony, I went on the internet. I was trying to look up to get the rivalry, how it stands. Do you have any clue? I guess
Trinity by one. Trinity by one, and I never thought, oh Lord, you know, we were having such a good time, and now Ken Taylor from Wave 3 has to show up. You know, we were on a roll.
Hi, Billy.
You know Tony Vanetti, don't you? Tony? Ken Taylor from Channel 3. Mr. Taylor is a graduate of Saint X, so now we have the other point of view represented here.
1989, I'm a lot younger than Tony.
No, not by much. 87. And again, another free cheeseburger guy. That's why he's here.
Bring Mr. What do you want? Have you ordered?
No, I just walked in.
Well, order some.
Let's get him a cheeseburger, medium well, some fries on the side.
I don't need fries, but I'll take a cheeseburger, sure.
There we go.
Give me a water.
Yeah.
That's the lady you need to talk to right there.
How do you want it cooked?
Medium, please.
All right.
Thank you.
What kind of cheese you want on?
What? Cheddar?
Cheddar.
I'm cheddar.
All right.
Well,
Thank you.
Ken, he was just asking where the rivalry stood, and again, when I was in high school, I never thought we would catch St. X because it was so far in the distance. But now, at this point, I know you guys didn't either, but at this point, it is Trinity by one.
Yeah, after the win last year in the playoffs. The game they probably should have won, really. I mean, if you saw that game, if Charles Walker doesn't get hurt, St. X wins that game. A pretty impressive effort by James Quick got hurt early in the game. That certainly helped. But yeah, Trinity finally caught him, and now
Playz had a really good game plan that he kind of shelved, I thought, in the third or fourth quarter. Then
they've had a couple of those games like that where they've had good games for the first half and stayed with them when they probably didn't have as much talent. And then in the second half, Trinity pulled away. Last year was the first. That game in the playoffs was the first time they stayed with them for an entire game in a while.
Let me ask you two guys. First of all, Tony, I'll start with you. But when were you at Trinity? What do you remember about the rivalry from the days when you were a student there? And why is it? It seems to me that Trinity and Saint, if you're a Trinity man or a Saint X man, that's something that you live with forever. It supersedes college. It's just something that
Well,
it's like.
I grew up in St. Matthews, so Trinity was just always part of the community and what it was a part of it. I love the Will Wolford line to where he was like, he grew up in the Catholic community, and it was a locker room in Vanderbilt before he figured out that not everyone was Catholic, that there was other religions, and you sort of grow up in that cocoon of the St. Matthews and Popolovo Road, that Catholic community. You don't realize that there's other religions and other world out there. So I was always a rock. I grew up going to those games and playing with the Nerf football on the side when your parents are watching the games. I grew up in the Catholic grade school football system, and it was just, at the time, it was always that Trinity was sort of the blue collar school, and my dad never made more than $40,000 a year, and I had 3 girls. My 3 sisters went to Sacred Heart, and I went to Trinity. You couldn't do that.
You probably make more than 40 grand from Body Shapes Medical.
Well, I'm making more than 40. 425-0500. Billy and you should probably look into that.
Hey, wait a minute. I lost 30 pounds.
You do look good. Everybody give it up for Billy. He does look fantastic. But back then, it seemed like Trinity was the blue collar, and St. X was established. They were older. They had a ton of alumni. They had more money. It just seemed like the blue collar guys were getting out of there, and it was a great rivalry at the time. But it seemed like St. X was the school, and we were kind of like the upstarts from St. Matthews. At least that's the way I felt in the '80s, early '80s.
Yeah, for me it was St. X. I'm from the St. X family. My dad graduated from St. X in 1963. One of my claims to fame is that he was on the 62 state championship game with Mike Silliman, 1962 state championship team.
I covered that.
He and Mike Silliman led him to the title, and that's the story I always heard growing up. And then I have 3 uncles who graduated from St. X, so it was never like a decision. I mean, I was always, I never even considered it. And I know Tony, a lot of people don't know that he actually took the entrance exam at St. X.
No, that never happened. No.
Did not do it. I don't think you'll find that to be surprising.
No.
So, yeah, I was always the St. X guy, and then when I went to St. X, St. X was so dominant in the rivalry up to that point, and we won the state championship when I was a freshman with Jeff Houck at quarterback. Interesting, because his son might be the starting quarterback tomorrow night. They're not really saying, but and then Jeff Brom came. He was my age. He was in my class. And after that, for the freshman, they weren't even close. I mean, those games, he was pretty good, by the way. And then Trinity. Then it went back and forth in the '90s, and then ever since Bob Beatty has been there in the last few years, they had just a phenomenal class that graduated last year, and they started to pull away.
Well, when I went there, it was that the 3 that went to Kentucky. It was the Gardner brothers, and it was Mike Pfeiffer, and the fullback. Carwell, or Andy Murray. Andy Murray and those guys. I was a sophomore that year, and it was like looking at those guys, because they were all really college football players in high school, and it was Gruneisen was Gruneisen's last year, and I remember the front of the Courier Journal was like storming Fort Trinity, because they had gone 14-0 the year before, and all these college Division I talent was there with Pfeiffer and all them, and it was just amazing at that time. But it was back and forth in the '80s with St. X and Trinity.
And I said Jeff Brom. I should have said Jeff Brom and Jody Demling. That was who, by the way, may or may not be here. I guess he had to go to Holy Trinity game.
Well, the freshman game is going.
No, he had to go to the freshman
game going out and not going well either for you either tonight. Either. Just want to let you know. 21 nothing.
I'll get over it.
Okay, I'm sure you
You guys, you'll like this. At the first one of these things we did, one of my guests was Freddie Maggard, the former UK quarterback. And I said, Freddie, I'm really glad to see Coach Stoops is recruiting Jefferson County and recruiting the Catholic high schools, because it seemed like Joker Phillips just kind of gave up on that. Freddie says, yeah, he said, when I was playing, we loved those Trinity and St. X guys. We had a lot of them. And the reason we loved them was because they could show us mountain boys how to tie a necktie. He said, yeah, well, we had to wear a coat and tie. We lined up outside their rooms. And they showed us how to, it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But now, I did a column about this rivalry this week for CatholicSports.com, and one of the items in there I said, a Mount Rushmore of Louisville high school football coaches. And of course that's going to invite controversy. But the four that I named were, and this is initially, the four I named were Charlie Kuhn of Mayo back in the day, Paulie Miller, Flagey, and Trinity. I had Johnny Myhouse in there, and God, who's the other one? Who am I leaving out?
Bob Bailey.
No, but anyhow, some St. X people said instead of Myhouse, you ought to have Mike Glazer on there.
Yeah.
Now, what about? I mean,
Bob Redmond has to be in the conversation.
yeah, he has to be. But what about to me, Myhouse is kind of the father of St. X football. Is that right or wrong? Is that a fair assessment?
He played right here, quarterback.
Who did?
Yeah,
Okay.
my house was pretty good.
Yeah, but I mean, he was. When he the kind of guy, when he, you know, and he developed so many great players, it seemed like.
Yeah, he really did back in the 50s.
Yeah.
Late 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Dickie Lyons was
Singing Lions and all that.
Yeah. And I know Glazer he won what, 7 state championships?
6 or 7.
Yeah, you know, don't forget Coach Lampley. I think Lampley is like the forgotten coach there, but again, he was, what, 55, and he did a 55-game win streak before, you know, Beatty's done a fantastic job of not just, you know, getting players from the Catholic system, but moving out to the Optimist Leagues and put together these monster teams. Yeah, recruiting, that's exactly right. To get the best players and best students to attend Trinity High School. All of those players that he brings in have graduated, just to let you know that. But before all that, Lampley's going, you know, he won 3 in a row. What was it, 55 wins in a row? I mean,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you can't forget about Dennis.
This is a St. X player for you right here, Brian Winter.
Brian Winter, what's up?
Come in, Brian.
Played at St. X. He was Victor Anderson's backup. He did a lot of carries.
Come in here and take a seat. Tell us, now, when did you play there, and tell us about your experience. You're a St. X guy, right? St. X guy, okay.
I graduated in 2007. I was the same year as Victor Anderson, running back. Never played. Imagine that, you know. But I was there for 4 years, and we lost to Trinity my junior year in the state championship.
Oh, you know, Brian was on that St. X team that beat Trinity pretty bad in the regular season.
Undefeated.
Was undefeated going into that state championship game. They had Nick Petrino at quarterback, and I'm sorry to bring it up because that's what we're talking about. But
That was back in the Rooms days when they thought Beatty was throwing the regular season game and then winning the state championship game. But obviously, everyone that meets Bob Beatty for more than 5 seconds knows he doesn't like to lose at anything.
We talked about that this past week, too.
Yeah, I guarantee it.
What do you guys think about the way that they've diluted, in my opinion, football championships by breaking it down into 6 divisions? And why aren't there more teams willing to schedule and play, state Kentucky teams willing to schedule St. X and Trinity and play them?
Well, I think it's great. I think that Central's won all these state championships. The only part I have a problem with is that everyone gets in the playoffs. Okay, because you have a team that clearly cannot play with the top level teams and are getting pounded into the ground in the first round of the playoffs, 70-0. Those kids don't deserve that.
There's one good thing about that first round of the playoffs.
What's that?
We only have to go to those games for about 5 minutes.
Right, that's it. Well, for you television guys. But really, now you have an opportunity for these other kids to get a state championship. All right, you've got Central now that's won 3 out of 4 or 3 in a row or something.
3 in a row, 5 out of 6.
Right, you know, and it's working.
Why do we love, you think that's okay, but yet we love the state basketball tournament where it's all coming. We love that. We don't want.
Well, it's not. Well, you know, I mean, there's 12 players on a basketball team. Trinity and St. X dress 100 guys. I was at a game at Shawnee the other night, and I was talking to their athletic director. And their program's coming back. They have 45, 50 kids on the team, which is
That's a lot for some schools.
And he was telling me, you know, he'll have a kid who wants to come out, and they have to find a helmet for him, and a helmet's $150, $200 or something. And I'm thinking, it's just crazy because, you know, St. X Trinity have 100 guys who dress every week.
Well, and DeSales went to a couple of years ago to the 2A state finals. They don't do that if it's still four or five.
I agree with Bill. I think it should be 4 though. 6 is too many. The reason they did that is because there were all the people complaining about they wanted to get rid of St. X and Trinity and make them play for a completely different thing. They said, all right, we'll do this with only the biggest schools, and it has, Central. They still could have won a 2A or a,
Well, they'll go back to that.
Once those guys, I bet like Highlands, there are some public schools who might, who could be competitive. I mean, Bowling Green right now, Bowling Green is competitive. They beat St. X twice at St. X.
Well, that's not a Trinity St. X issue. That is a Jefferson County Public Schools. I mean, I remember Seneca being very good, and Southern being good, and Butler's and Outback. But all those high schools were really good football teams, and oh, by the way, schools in the 70s and 80s. That's not our issue. That's their issue. They've got to get it together.
Mayo's pretty good this year. They actually may beat St. X or Trinity. They've got some speed, and they're young. They have a lot of sophomores.
And eventually, let's talk. I mean, Bob Beatty was on my show a couple of weeks ago, and he said what we've been talking about is this Catholic conference that's coming. Bob finally brought it up the other day and said, look, we've got to start. St. X and Trinity are not going to be in the state championship in a decade. They will not play for the state championship. They will be playing for some sort of Catholic conference championship, because this is all going to be on ESPN. They are going to be recruiting not just Kentucky, but they will be bringing in offensive linemen from Tennessee and Georgia and other parts of the country. They will be recruiting nationwide, and they will go to this conference. In 10 years, that's going to be a reality.
Well, and he brings up an interesting point. I think the worst thing is 6 classes is one thing, but the fact that they split that, they make them play earlier in the playoffs than the state championship game, which shoots themselves in the foot because it costs them money at the gate. For the, they don't want them to play in the state. I mean, they should play in the state championship game just about every year. Every once in a while, they're being upset. Last year Scott County was pretty good. They almost beat Trinity.
They were really good.
Probably should have, but other than that, they should meet. Why not meet in the state championship game? I mean, that's when it gets exciting. That's when you get the huge crowds. They also shouldn't play it in Bowling Green, but that's another issue.
Let me follow up there on what Tony just said, though, because that's really interesting to me about the way this is heading to this Catholic conference. Is that a good thing? I mean, I'm not, but...
It's regardless, that's where it's going. ESPN has already contacted these schools and said, we are going in this direction and we love what you're doing. We want to make you a part of our Friday night football on ESPN. It's going to happen. If you told Rob Mullen or Domoff over at St. X 5 years ago that you wouldn't play a Jefferson County, 5 years ago, you won't play a Jefferson County team until the 7th game in the season, they would go, we can't do that. We don't have the infrastructure for that. We don't have the money for that. There's no way we can do that. That's a reality today. I mean, they're happening. The sketch, and again, I don't know what it takes away from the St. X Trinity game, but think about, St. X has already traveled to Moeller this year. That's a heck of a matchup, and you played really well against Moeller. But that is unbelievable to me. I mean, to me, that's awesome. I loved it to see it.
What do you think about that?
We did that too. We played Moeller at the Bengals Stadium senior year. Highlands too. They beat us. I mean, it's fun. I just want to see a good game in the state championship. I don't want to see a blowout.
You mentioned Highlands, and I've got to ask this question. Did any of you all see the scrimmage when Trinity scrimmage Highlands when Patrick Tolles was the quarterback?
Yeah.
I heard rave reviews about Patrick Tolles, and he's gone to UK and just disappeared. What is the deal with that?
Well, that team, is that the Trinity team that won the national title? I mean, that's a little unfair at that point.
But he looked good against them. He really
Oh, he
looked
did.
good.
Okay, yeah. He did look good.
So why?
against them.
I mean, what's happened to him since he's gone to Kentucky?
Well,
They need a quarterback,
Well, let's talk about where he went to school. He had Joker last year. I don't know. They're going to have to straighten out their quarterback situation. There's no question about that.
But
But give credit to Highlands for playing Trinity. Give credit to the Highlands for still coming here and playing Trinity, because again, other schools, and I don't blame them. Seneca said, I don't have to play you? No, thank you. Okay, their best team they've had in years at Derek, or the Smith kid, the quarterback, Tamarcus Smith. That was their best team in years, and Trinity really just put half their kids in the infirmary. I mean, that was a bad night for them. So again, I don't blame those schools for not playing Trinity at this point.
Okay, let's get to tomorrow night's game. Here's the way I see it from everything I've heard from our reporters at Louisville Catholic Sports. Trinity has played a much harder schedule. Even though Saint X has a better record, Trinity is probably favored to win the game. Is that fair? I'm curious. I was really excited about Saint X and about Browning Nagel's son, but that apparently isn't working too well. Does anybody have any insight into that?
I do not.
Well, yeah, I watched film on Nagel's kid before he got here. Did you see that same YouTube video?
No, I've seen him play here a couple times.
Okay.
I saw the first game of the year, and we went to practice a couple times this summer, and Brian got some shots of him and talked to him a couple times, and he looked great in practice. The first game of the year against Ballard, the first half, they didn't do anything. They were up 6-0 at halftime. Didn't do anything. He looks to me like he's a little heavy-footed. He doesn't move real well in the pocket. He gets, and he had a touchdown pass in that game, and then I hadn't seen him again until the Central game the other night, and he wasn't even in there when we got there in the second half. And Noah Houck was playing, the junior, and he threw two great.
He went 5
He threw
for
one
5,
touchdown pass at the end of the first half, and then he threw another 72-yard touchdown pass in the second half. It was, it wasn't like a short little pass where the receiver ran. I mean, it was a nice ball. So I don't know what the deal is with where they stand on who's going to be their quarterback.
Well, here's the
tomorrow night.
conversation.
From what I've seen,
Here's the conversation. I know you moved from Memphis. That's awesome. And thanks for being the offensive coordinator, but we have to save your son. That's going to have to be the conversation.
But
if
the
that's
problem
reality.
is Jeff Houck is also a coach.
Right.
It's weird. Yeah. I think all three of their quarterbacks, I think their dads are coaches.
They just brought grade school daddy ball up to high school at that point.
That would be an issue. What did you think of Nagel? You saw him.
Big kid, big arm. I saw 2 bombs in the summer game. And
you know what? I tell you what I've thought of them when I've seen them play. They should run the ball, and I know that goes against a lot of people thought. But they have running backs. Charles Walker is one of the best players in the city. Austin Davis is good. The Trevion Purcell kid is hurt, so he was a big.
And they got a big offensive line. You run behind a Will Wolford coached offensive line, and you run Walker. He could get 250 yards.
And Davis is he's a big kid. They have some running backs and an offensive line to run the ball. No, it's not what a lot of people want them to do.
But no, you've got to play to your strength, and Will was just inherited whatever he had, and again, I think it will end up being a coin flip. I think that you have to read a little bit off that playoff game last year, right? I mean, that you have to throw that into consideration, that they kept it so tight last year. I think it is a coin flip. I think Bonifant could be really the difference in the game. I just think, and not just throwing the ball, because sometimes he throws the ball and he looks amazing. And sometimes not so much, but when he pulls it down and goes, it's dangerous.
Now, Bonifant didn't even play quarterback last year, is that correct?
Correct.
And all of a sudden, and a friend of ours named Sam Stallings, I know Tom Baxter and Billy Musselman are familiar with Mr. Stallings and his expertise, but he's telling me he's the greatest thing since Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, is he? I mean, is he really?
Sean Watson was at one of his first practices or one of the warm-ups, and he was standing there. And again, they recruited Bonifant before he was a sophomore, and they offered him a scholarship on reputation in the camps, because that's where you go. If people are wondering why he was the 17th ranked quarterback in the country and not played quarterback yet, they rank all these guys in football from the camps. They really don't consider a lot of the actual high school play. I mean, they go to camps, they throw the ball, they set their 40 time, all that kind of stuff that the NFL likes. So Sean Watson watched him throw the ball just one time and said, oh, we've made a good decision.
Yeah, there are a lot of people clued in at Trinity, whether it be Tony Vanetti or Jody Demling, who were telling me that he was going to be their starting quarterback last year. And I'm thinking, really, Travis Wright just led him back-to-back state champions.
You didn't hear that from me.
He's pretty good.
Yeah.
No, this kid's going to be the starting quarterback. So they really believe that. He can play. I haven't seen him. I've only seen a couple. I haven't played too many games in town this year. The thing that impresses me, he can run, but he doesn't run first. And when he is running in the pocket, he keeps his head downfield, and he can throw it. I mean, he's got. He
can throw it. He's got a huge arm.
Is he like Bridgewater? I mean, is that I know he's not. He's in a fair. Is he really?
I hate to compare anybody to Bridgewater at this point. I mean, no way. I mean, Teddy is just he's special kid. I think tomorrow it could really come down to the St. X seniors just tired of losing and go out and try and just hit somebody in the mouth.
Yeah, the motivation factor.
It's got to be there. I mean, if you have it, you want to go out a winner. The only thing is that I love Will Wolford. He's a very good friend of mine, but there's a coaching advantage, and it's on the Trinity side. And until someone shows me any different, Bob Beatty's the best football coach in the state.
That brings me to my next question. Is Will, from what you've been able to see, is he really enjoying this? Do you see him being at St. X for the long haul?
Go ahead, brother.
I don't know the answer. You know, I'm pretty good friends with Will too, and I've all the way back to the Louisville Fire, and I haven't really talked to him. I'd kind of try to let him have his distance this season. We talked to him yesterday at the Salute to the Game luncheon, which, by the way, you didn't show up to, Billy. They was spotted at the table. Thanks for coming. But I digress.
Did you eat his dessert? Did you eat his dessert?
His cookie? Oh, the cookie's right
Yeah,
there.
the cookie. You ate his cookie?
Working down that the dean has given him the merits.
Yes, demerits for Kent. Duly noted, sir.
Jug. So, what were we talking about?
Will Wolford lasting a lot? I don't think he lasts. I don't think he'll end up going home.
He didn't seem the same yesterday when I talked to him.
What way?
I don't know. He's kind of a laid-back, carefree guy, and there seemed to be a lot on his shoulder.
Everything that he's done up until this point has been at such a high level. He's been successful at everything he's touched.
Yeah.
Everything he has touched, business-wise, has been over the top. He's been so successful that his football team, the Louisville Fire, led not just Division II, but Division I arena football. Everything he's done is done.
Won the Woodford Reserve.
He wanted to get involved with the Indianapolis Colts. He's calling the games for the Colts. Anything he touches turns to gold. I think this is his first sort of, oh my Lord, what have I gotten myself into? I think he's had that oh my moment, and I'm not sure if he's I'm not sure. You'd have to ask Will. I know he's not going to leave out of there without winning some games.
You know, Billy, the one thing about that too is I know Will as well, and he loved the Colts. He tried to stay with the Colts even with the Saint X job, and he just couldn't pull it off. So I think there's a little bit of a regret factor in there, but he couldn't pass up this opportunity. It's St. X. But I think he really does miss some of the things he liked doing before, and he had time to do them, versus now he's, of course, completely occupied.
Oh, and I'm sure his wife is having a great time too.
He seems passionate when I've seen him at practice. I mean, he's glad to be coaching his alma mater. Every time I've talked to him, that's what he said. This is his dream, you know, to coach St. X football. But I never knew him beforehand.
Yeah, the jury's still out. Again, everything changes tomorrow with the win against the Rocks. I mean, he gets the win against the Rock, and they're going to carry him off the field. Well, they're going to try to carry him off the field.
All right, let's just start with Tony. Why don't you just talk a little bit about how you think the game is going to go tomorrow night and make a prediction, and then Kent will go down this way.
Okay.
And then we'll take any questions or comments or whatever that anybody has here in the audience.
I think it'll be 24-12. I see the same score, maybe the Moeller game around there. I think you'll get the yards. I think Walker will get all the yards he wants. It's a young defense at Trinity. Every week you see the younger kids are getting more playing time. So I think he's shooting for next year and the year after that. So I think when you're young, you're in this rivalry. I think St. X will probably have a good game plan for him. Again, I don't know what the crowd is going to look like. They're saying ticket sales are low, right, at this point. So they are. So I don't know. I think 24-12, I think Trinity wins it and keeps the streak going.
I think St. X might be able to contain Brooks and Trinity's running game and maybe keep Bonifant in the pocket. But from what I've seen, they can't. I mean, Ballard threw all. The guy had, I think the quarterback for Ballard had over 170, 180 yards in the first half. That's a lot for a high school game. And his receivers were not just open, they were wide open. Now that was the first game of the year, but you know, Trinity, with the way Bonifant can sling it around, and I don't know that you can stop both things. So I see them moving the ball up and down the field. I said 31-17 Trinity. That's my guess.
Well, I went to Saint X, you know, but I'm going to say Saint X, even though I don't think either defense is that good. I mean, they're good, but I'm just saying I think it's going to be more points than we expect. 27-24 Saint X.
There you go. There you go.
Why not?
I'm really impressed with Bob Beatty. I think that guy is just really good, and I think that's where the edge is going to come in. I do think St. X is going to play really hard. I think they're going to play well, but I tend to think that Tony is that differential is probably pretty close at 10 points maybe. So I think you're probably right. It'd be a little bit higher scoring, so I would say something like maybe 30-21, something like that, Trinity. So now, anybody out there who wants to make a prediction, make a comment, you can either stand up, come up here, take the microphone, or stay in your seat, whatever you want to do. Who over here? Yes, sir.
Right, again, I was just speaking from what my experience was.
What about, you guys have a prediction over here, an unbiased prediction?
That you think, yeah, not an unbiased one.
Go for it.
We're hard, I think I speak for this group a little bit. If you're going to defend St. X through the years, with Mike Playz and Johnny Miles, you know that they're going to run the ball. It's one-dimensional. I see a great advantage for the opponent every time they play the football. Because you kind of know what's going to happen. If you do the percentages over the years, and I would use that say that St. X has grown. If they pass, their passes on first down, which is an indicator of trying to mix it up, I think. Probably less than 5%. And of that 5%, it's probably when they're behind late in the game and they're throwing, they're down to 4 minutes left, we're going for it. But they're Hail Mary because they don't know the passing game. And because they don't have that other passage to the offense, I think they're easy to defend. We're easy. And I hate that.
Would you, as a younger St. X player, what would you think about that assessment?
It's accurate.
You remember the one St. X Trinity game where they came out throwing almost every play right out? Were you playing then? Yeah.
It was awesome. You've never seen that before.
Exactly. And I emailed Mike Playz actually the next morning when I saw it. I think Curly was like, whatever it was, 21 of 24, something like that, 200 yards, 3 or 4 touchdowns, 40 to 10 win. Oh, I said, now we're rolling. So I emailed Mike, said, great job of recognizing that there is another way to move the ball, and etc. And I thought we're on the move. And from there on, it never happened again. I mean, he's got, it's just the mentality, run.
Well, you want to put Bob, you want to put Bob on his heels. You want to come out there, and I don't know if it's going to be Houck or it's going to be. I think for Trinity guys at this point, I think Nagel comes out throwing the ball, and you're going to feel pretty comfortable. If it's Houck, he went 5 for 5 and 2 touchdowns. They have a little bit more confidence with him. They put Trinity on their heels. You're down 10, then Bob has to change his way of thinking.
Exactly.
All right, and then you start to build momentum, and then the clock working against him.
See, they're unaccustomed to seeing St. X pass successful.
Have you guys seen any noticeable difference under Will in terms of the offensive plan?
Oh my, I hate to answer that. I was so hopeful, and I went to the Valor game, and I think Kent, you mentioned 8 passes, 2 or 3 completions, none of them on first down. I mean, it was like Mike was calling those.
Yeah, but I think they're 70 wide receivers on the freshman team, something like that. I think the culture is starting to, they've sold it well to the youngsters. I mean, come to St. X and we're going to throw the ball. So we'll see if in the future whether they're doing that same thing. Will's got to run what he's got, what he has, which is Walker. and a big old offensive line.
But he runs better when you pass the ball.
Right, establish.
Open it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Holds everybody congregated.
Right, get some running lanes.
He got hurt too at the end of that game last week. Hip pointers. I don't know. Was he practicing the other day?
Well, no, he wasn't.
So.
And I was there till 4:15, 4:30. He still showed up.
Mike, are you going to be working the PA tomorrow night? Your good voice and everything? Going to try, okay. Now, do you have to strain to remain unbiased when you're doing?
I've been doing it too long to
How many years you been doing it?
28.
28. Wow. That's great. Yeah, seriously.
John Thomas announced, and he did that for so many years, and he passed away in 1999. And then from then on, depending on whose game it was, either be me, Trinity, or right now Mark Cyrus been doing it for Saint Xavier for quite a few years. So we just alternate the moment.
All exits will be open for outgoing traffic. He was a piece of work, wasn't he?
Yeah, there are some good stories. You know, you would hear him on the microphone, and he would be so dapper and everything, but you turn that microphone off, and between John, Charlie Reuter, Rosie Roselle, it was every man for himself. It was fun.
John Tom,
Yeah.
Did you all know John?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Dressed.
And for this point, both teams will shoot the bunnies. Good evening and welcome to the Kentucky Fair and Exposition Center for the thrill and the excitement of major college basketball. Snaps call. I went to a few of those games.
I was on an airplane with Dick Fenlon one time, and we encountered some turbulence, and I got scared to death, and I was sitting there white knuckling the seat and all this. Fenlon leans over and he says, "All exits will be open for outgoing."
I have a question, and kind
Yeah.
of what you were saying about the new coaches and all. I've been wondering, and I'd be interested to hear what you guys think with Will Wolford and Brandon Nagel. If you think that they're going to open up the offense, really open it up, and even throw in or try to throw in some NFL schemes and something like that.
I think they probably watched the film 47 times. It's just that Trinity has played competition that is so high at this point. It is tough to gauge how good they are, and I think that they see some holes in that defense, though. I think that secondary is not that net. You take Ryan White out of that secondary, and that leaves. I mean, that guy changed the temperature of football games when he put a hat on somebody early in the game, and everyone knew what game they were in. I think, and no offense to the Manual team in the 1950s, but I got to tell you, that class last year, I don't know how that's not the greatest high school football senior class that ever came through Jefferson County. I mean, those guys from Travis, which is the second leading completion quarterback behind Tim Couch in the history of and he's the forgotten one, by the way. The quarterback is the forgotten one, but they were so good. Wow, and you got to take that into consideration. Those guys are all gone. These are all new guys trying to get this thing done.
Yeah, I'm sure St. X will try some different things. I don't know that they have the personnel to execute a lot of that stuff, though. But I mean, I'm guessing we'll see a lot of new things that they haven't tried in the first.
I don't think
6
Will's
games.
going to care. I think Will's going to throw the kitchen sink at this thing.
Yeah.
I think he's going to try the fumble Ruski. I mean, why not? I mean, he's got nothing to lose.
It's like your tee shot on hole number 1. If you can hit that, people hit. You know, I mean, if you can win this game, people will remember it for a while.
I agree. I mean, it's the Saint X Trinity game, so throw everything out there. Why not? What do you have to lose, John?
How much did you find? Was there new stuff in that week, or stuff that you practiced all year that maybe you didn't use until that game?
Yes. The offense was completely different for that game. I mean, you'd save up some plays, you'd save up some trickery. You know, Saint X is not known for trickery, but there were a couple of different things that it was a 4th or 5th game of the season. Yeah, we saved some stuff up. And it came in handy a couple times.
A lot of people don't know this. Brian was like Brian Piccolo to Victor Anderson's Gail Sayers.
Brian Piccolo.
I'm not there yet.
What you guys have seen so many of these games. Is there one favorite game that you?
I'll take that. The
Okay.
best one, and it was one of the best football games. I've seen a lot of high school football games over the years, but, and I might not have said this at the time because it wasn't all that fun to be at initially, but the state championship game, it was that the first time they ever played in the state championship game, Old Cardinal Stadium, 3-0, Ben Bosher field goal. It must have been, how many of you all were there for
It
that?
was awful.
It was like 100 below.
It was awful.
I mean, it was freezing. But
3
it was,
to nothing.
but it was when was it? 98 maybe? 97, 98. But the thing is, it was 3-0. But I mean, I remember a UK Indiana game with like Alex Smith that was 3-0. It was a horrible game. Indiana won it 3-0. This was a great football game. Both defenses were really good. I mean, St. X had Bernard Jackson and Chip Mattingly at linebacker. It was a good football game, and St. X won it 3-0. And that one stands out to me. The Brom state championship game at one of the first ones at Papa John's Cardinal Stadium. I think it was like a 21-14 game. Was a good one.
Running clock. I remember that game pretty well.
Those
2 years ago.
Those are the ones that jump out to you.
That was a good one.
I can remember. I'll bring up Tendai Cheresika and
obviously, no, that senior year, that 85 team that everybody thinks is maybe one of the best Trinity teams ever, that lost to St. X in the state or the Final Four there at Old Cardinal Stadium. Remember, they had all those 4 guys that went to Division I teams. They hadn't lost, and they lost in that game. Was it 21-7 or 21-0 or something like that? And then, of course, a couple years before that was the missed extra point. Was that the St. X? Right.
The 11-10 game on the Boston pitch out.
Right.
Was it late, around 70, 72?
So what about the Dominic penalty?
Oh, yeah.
The Dominic penalty.
Please bring it up.
Suspended for a week. I couldn't believe he was suspended for a week for that.
You can't really bring up the pitch penalty.
But then he got a letter to go to the Kentucky high school refs luncheon.
I just heard another
Dressed
version
as a
of that
ref.
story just a couple weeks ago. I didn't realize they had given him every Friday night off that week, because his son David was the quarterback for St. X, and so he would go to the games and he'd stand on the sidelines in his St. X jersey and whatever. I don't know.
The night that happened, he didn't have a jersey on, and we saw him on the sidelines, and David was quarterbacking, and there was a play where David threw a pass, got a 20-30 yard pass over to the sideline where all the reporters were, and the play was ended. About 10 seconds later, this flag goes up as high as it could possibly go. And I said, I said, somebody said something. So we're watching, and all of a sudden, Dominic starts walking away. And I said to John Thomas, I think Dominic got thrown out. And nobody knew that night. So the next day, I called one of the officials I knew, and I said, did Dominic get thrown out of the game? And he started laughing. He said, yeah. And what had happened was David threw that pass, and after about 10 seconds, Dominic said to the official with the call expletive,
Right.
and that's when the flag went up. And I think he was off like 2 weeks.
Well, the best part of that story to me is on Monday, I guess he had talked about it, and I didn't work there, I was in high school, but I've heard this version that on Monday he had been talking about it all weekend. Everybody's talking. It was in the paper, and then he comes to work on Monday, gets called into the news director's office. The news director had Bob and Rick Redmond, who was the sports director at the time, who now works at Hillrick and Brasby, and he said, all right, well, here's what we're going to do. You are going to go on the air and apologize, says the Dominic, and he looks at Rick and he says, and you're going to write it. Rick Redmond's like, well, I didn't have anything to do with this. Why do I have to write it? And the news director goes, because he'll F it up.
We can all agree that you had some very small shoes to fill. Before you get to your favorite game, I want to get that from you. I just want to tell you one story that, and I haven't seen nearly as many of these games as you guys have. But when I was sports editor of the Courier Journal in 1978, I think it was, I covered the game at the old Fairgrounds Stadium. And it was a very close game, as I recall, and St. X lost. It was really a tough loss. And after the game, I was on the field and I tried to interview a couple of St. X players, and they just kind of blew me off. The next thing I heard, the St. X coach was Mike Stewart. You all remember him. He says, hey, you guys come back here. At St. X, we teach you to win like men, but we're going to teach you to lose like men too. You stand here and whatever Mr. Reed wants to ask you, you answer his questions. And I thought that was really classic. Here's a guy that's just suffered a really tough loss to his arch rival, and yet he's still trying to teach these kids how to lose with class and dignity. And that really stuck out in my mind. I was really impressed with that.
I learned a lot about discipline in 4 years at St. X, I'll say that much. Even if I didn't play football, just going to school there. I'm sure training is the same way, but yeah, most of the coaches are disciplinarians. If not, they're all pretty hardcore. Even the sisters were hardcore.
Oh, I can believe that. What about your favorite game?
My favorite two were probably when I was in high school. The Brom one, when they beat us in the state championship. That was when I was a freshman. Brom, he was good. He lit it up. I mean, he was fun to watch as a high. He was a junior that year. That wasn't even his senior year.
That was their best. I thought that was his best team.
Yeah.
Was the junior.
That was a good game. Yeah.
Was that the team where in the game year he played Michael Bush? Or was that
No, it was the next one.
That was the next one.
The first one at Papa John's. And then I'd have to go with the Brent Curley game, even though that wasn't the state championship. It was just different seeing St. X pass the ball. They get first downs, pass it more, they look different. And I thought, like you said, that's where we were going with that. And then we lost to Trinity 14-6 in the state championship that year. So
There was another state, was it a state championship game where, I want to say the kid's name, maybe Nick Payne, or had a touchdown run in overtime for St. X to win? Was that a state championship game, or was that just that was at Old Cardinal Stadium too, I think.
that's before my time.
Just a kid. You don't know what you missed.
There was a lot before that time.
So the report is that ticket sales are not what they usually are.
I can't confirm that, but that's what I'm hearing, is that the ticket office is saying that the numbers are not exactly reflecting the wow factor of Will back at St. X, and the change of command hasn't. And again, I think that reflects, because the numbers went down a lot. I don't know if that has to do anything with the new scheduling. Like, St. X and Trinity was the two big boys playing. Well, now that you can see Indianapolis Cathedral come to town and St. X Cincinnati come to town, does it take away a little bit from the St. X Trinity? I know it probably doesn't, because it's like this town is about, night racing is not exactly about night racing, it's about the event. So the St. X Trinity game is the event. But I wonder if those matchups that we play now are taking anything away from that matchup to St. X Trinity.
Night racing is about underage drinkers
Yes.
being about free beer.
That's exactly what that is. I agree with that.
But yeah, that surprises me, because when you do you all know? Can you think of any place else in the country where a former All-Pro guy that's got 3 Super Bowl rings has gone back to coach high school football? I just don't know if there's anybody else in the country that...
He loves that school, man. I mean, he just really...
Well, that, obviously,
yeah. He's just, that's, I think, and I don't know how long the plan was set. I mean, some people say that it's been 10 years that Will's name has been in there, and they have just been waiting, and that Coach Glazer it was sort of a Brett Favre situation, to where you didn't know if he was going or staying, or he said he was going, then he came back. And that Will was just waiting and waiting and waiting before he got that job. So, I think he's always wanted to coach X.
Is there any possibility, talking about how conservative they've been over the years, that tomorrow night that it'll be the air raid, they'll just come out throwing the ball just to shock everybody from the get-go, or is that beyond the realm of possibility? But you answer that first.
I think they should, throw everything they have at them. But again, they have the big running backs, they have the big line. So if the air raid doesn't work, go back to what they're known for.
I don't know that they have the receivers to do that now.
I think they always have talent. I mean, they always got some.
And then who's going to be the quarterback, I guess? I just wonder which quarterback would do that. Certainly they could. I mean, that might be their best chance.
And Trinity has a new defensive coordinator. Craig Swabach is not there anymore. So Craig is now He's going to call a U of L game on Saturday. He's back in the booth with Paul. But he has been the last 3 years that defensive coordinator. It's locked down defense. You got all new personnel on defense and a new defensive coordinator. If they don't, you don't strike, strike now. You know, I think it's a possibility. The secondary obviously is always seems to be a little bit suspect at Trinity.
What's the name of the game?
The name of the game is fun. I can't use it too loud. I don't want to get it too loud. They're opening the door. People start running.
We have a fellow sitting right here with this Rocks t-shirt on. He's been very quiet. He's been taking all this in. I can tell though you have a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience. Wow. What's your take on this game tomorrow night?
Well, first of all, I didn't go to Trinity or Saint Xavier, but we had three of our sons who went to Trinity, and they're still very loyal. I admire both schools because of what they create. Young, good gentlemen that come out of that school, disciplined, and I know my son who did everything in the world for him. He had ADD in school, and he had special classes, and he came out of there a better human being than what he began. I guarantee you. So since the time they started going there, I don't think I missed maybe one game in all those years. So to maybe address a couple things, Tony, you said about playing out of state, and I think it does take away a little bit. It takes away from the community involvement. I mean, there's so many people that all look forward to going to a Trinity game or Saint X game, and the fact that they're gone, it sort of frees up people to think about other things. Any other time, it's like, okay, we're going to a game this Friday night, this is what we're going to do. I think it has taken away from it. It does me, because it's like after the fact, I might ask one of the boys, what did Trinity win? But most of the time I would be just really, really involved, So to answer that from just from a layman's perspective, I think it does take away. I really do. But I was at that 3-0 game, and I remember all of us wearing our overalls and just freezing to death, and it was quite an event, though. I mean, it still stands out in our son's minds as one of the best games to go to. But my son, my youngest son, did play for 3 years. He was like second or third string, but he did dress a couple times and he did play a couple times. So it was an honor, to see him be able to play for second for team. Yeah, it was a great night.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate that. That's great stuff.
Billy, I have a question.
Yes.
I had the great pleasure of going down last year to the United States All-American Bowl in San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah.
My nephew was a drummer in the band. But being down there, I'm a Saint X fan, I have to say that out loud. But I was down there with Justin and James. Right? Justin Hatcher and James Quick. And they had a blast with them. Jason, thank you. But anyway, I had a blast down there and met the family. I've seen them this year. Actually just saw Hatcher's mom at the last U of L game. Are there any potentials coming off of Trinity and or St. X's team that are going to have that opportunity? Because that was awesome. Everything about San Antonio was
playing that Army, it's a U.S. Army thing, isn't it?
Yes, United States Army Bowl.
I doubt that they've named those.
Bonifant is definitely up for that, but I don't think he's going to be as high. Because they only take maybe 5 quarterbacks. Maybe the kid Barker might. Trinity. The Trinity quarterback Bonifant is ranked around 12th in the country. Barker, the one that's going to Kentucky next year, is ranked more like 5th in the nation. So he's got a better chance of playing that game. Other than that, no, it's not.
Has Saint X ever had anyone play that game?
I don't think so.
I don't think they had.
No. It's a tough game to get into.
Something that just, it seems to me that when Johnny Myhouse was the Saint X coach, Saint X was known to be pretty innovative offensively. That he was, when did they become so conservative?
Well, that's not accurate.
Okay,
Innovative as far as the run goes.
Yeah.
In past seconds. And
Okay.
it's just been forever, really. That type of it would beat you up, physical football. Woody Hayes style, basically.
You all are
Miller and Charles Wood, and those guys were a little more progressive in the way they would mix their games up, and it would be a challenge.
Well, I mean,
we win our share.
Yeah.
You forget that Bob Beatty that the last two coaches at Trinity were national searches. I mean, until St. X, I think, changes their philosophy to say, we're going to go to a national search and we're going to bring in a type of guy that is that kind of philosophy where he's going to spread the field. Okay, and if you're going to hire locally, you get what you get. But the last two guys are national searches, and I'm not sure that the administration over at St. X is on the same page as the administration over at Trinity, or they have the two different visions or even close.
Totally agree.
Right.
Right.
They're more worried about the academics.
Mike and Will are great guys, and they're wonderful people, top-notch.
Right, sure.
And good football coaches. My goodness, Mike won 80-85% of the games.
Oh, yeah.
And lost the state championship. So but the philosophy is archaic in trying to beat Trinity. When the ball's all over the place, and you don't know what's coming next. But you do kind of know what's coming next if you're defending X. And there's a big disparity there in that view. It's an advantage to Trinity as soon as the ball's kicked off.
Now, are you all class of 63, St. X? Starting lineup for the 1962 state basketball champions was Mike Sullivan, Bob Schmidt, Billy Cassidy, Vince Stamp, and Jimmy Cooper, with Butch Kaufman coming off the bench. Right around.
Oh, Lord. Bill Musselman. Off the bench now, come on.
Billy Musselman was there.
His nickname was Sure Shot.
Number 13, John Taylor. He's in the picture. I've seen the picture.
How much playing time did you get?
Thank you.
How much playing time? Come on. He was
You
concentrating
don't
on
ask
golf.
questions of the crowd. They ask you questions.
He was concentrating on golf, which he did extremely well. Thank you very much.
Billy, I got to thank you for having me out. I got to get my kids home. We got a school night tonight, so I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us tonight.
I want to thank both of you guys. Thank you all for being here, and we'll announce the next one here sometime soon. But Tony,
It was great to see you. It's always a pleasure to be on
You
your
have a
radio
free
show.
cheeseburger now. It's fantastic.
That's right.
I hope tomorrow on his radio show, Tony will tell Ken Spencer how much he loves his high school show on
Thank you
Friday
so
night,
much.
like he does every week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much for coming out. We appreciate it.